It's always nerve-wracking.
Oh, hold on.
I want to see what you see.
We're
Are we
live.
live? We're live?
So we are live. So just wait for that, and then we're here. And then when people leave comments, whoever's listening to it leaves comments, it'll pop up, and then I can share them. Or if I need
I should have dialed in and been like in the gym, and then like turned the sound up, and then moved in closer. Like, hey, what are you recording right now?
Are you here?
What are you doing? Is this like what are you doing on your computer? Eric, I made you muffins.
Did you make me muffins?
I'm sorry. I was busy coaching and being judged by my boss.
That is true. That is true. What a morning for you.
I thought first I thought like, is he messing with me? Is he picking the rowing day? Like knowing that?
No, and it was funny. I laughed when I said I was looking at my schedule and be like, all right, when's a good day that I can commit to it? And when's a good day that I can commit to it and come in and make sense? And so then when I looked at the program, I was like, oh, Wednesday's a run, he'll be fine. Like this.
Yeah, that was fun though. I like the 3,000 distance in that split into 3 1,000s.
Yeah,
it's like it's the 800. Well, obviously, right? Like that's what you would scale if you're running an 800 meter. It's the worst. It's so like it's not a sprint, but you have to go hard the whole time.
Yeah.
Like 500 hurts, but like it ends so quickly because it's less than 2 minutes. I mean, you know, some folks are sub 130 even, like really good, and so like it's miserable, but it's not as miserable. Like you could see on everybody's faces after the second one, just utter like despair and fear because they're like, oh my god, I have one more of these. Oh my god. But they did great.
After the first one, they're all like, you could tell they're all like, okay, that was good. One down. All right, one down. And that second one was like, we have one more of these. Oh my god.
So so I you know, I'm on a timetable, so we'll get into it, though I hate rushing us because that's half the fun. Your process with this, I think, would be worth going through. This is gonna be so weird. We're gonna be like switching hats of like, so I'm evaluating you, evaluating me, but I'm not even evaluating you. I'm evaluating this process, really. So I love it. And this is just a loop back. Something you and I did not do well last week. We talked about somebody who is not physically here.
Right.
In our minds, we had already transitioned into who we were talking about. Just was like an archetype, and we were more talking about, but completely inappropriate. And so sorry, TJ. Like not appropriate to talk about somebody, even if you're talking about them well, right? Like because it opens the door for the person to possibly be offended. But here's the way I look at it, in a better way to remind me, because I don't like coming from a negative spot. What a lost opportunity to not have his feedback available in the moment. Because when he did give that feedback via the different mediums, I was like, oh my God, he's so right. Like I would have rather been proven wrong in the moment, which he did eventually. And it was I learned his whiteboard skills. Holy shit. So I'm breaking the rule I said that we should set for ourselves. I'm talking about it right now, but it's in apology. Like I was, wow. That is, I'm so jealous of the 930 class that they get those they get that whiteboard magic. Like, it's amazing.
I was like, sometimes when I was like, I should have gotten a bigger whiteboard. I was like, oh man, he would have been like Da Vinci in there, right? Like, or Michelangelo.
Wow. Like, so all that to say, we're only going to talk about us today.
Yes, we're going to evaluate
and for all time. All right. So your process, I love it. I love the setup. I love the challenge that you gave us to look at CAP and the cues that CAP uses for the workouts, not as a crutch and not as that shall use these, but rather do these, will these be helpful? Do these help me as a coach?
You're right.
Understand what the like overall intention, micro, sort of specific, and then macro intention of each of the things are. I'm on a structural day, it's rowing.
Which is a real easy one to look and be like, well, this is gonna be an easy day.
Right. But there are, I mean, rowing is such a perfect, we'll get there. I liked the process. I liked that I had to think about it. I had to prep.
Yeah.
I always like coaching back-to-back classes because whatever doesn't work in the first, you can try again. If you think it works in the first and it works, and then you try it again in the second and it doesn't work, you're like, what the hell? It's the same thing. Oh, right. Cues must be different if it's a different individual.
Right.
You kind of have to, right? Like, what's the best cue?
Yeah, the one that works.
The one that works, right? So it's sort of that. It's a great experiment and reminder of don't be tied to the cue, be tied to what is intended in this movement to stimulate. And so if I say for somebody to do something and I'm not seeing them do it, and then I tell them how to fix it, aka cue them, and it fixes it, then that's the right cue. Don't feel like you have to invent every new cue.
Yeah.
Use the ones that have statistically 90% of the time works. But if for some reason that one doesn't work, change it up and try something else. So this was with rowing. There's only so many things you can do.
Yeah.
But I was so is that like a good evaluation? I love it. I love this. And then this part, you now making me self-evaluate based on the memory of what I think it went down, and then you'll evaluate me on kind of like, I think you're right, and we'll see if there's that delta, because in the delta is where the improvement happens. There you go. So I had 3 things I wanted to focus on. Number 1 was education. That rowing as a thing, as a skill, has a foundation in rowing on a boat, in the water. Like all the language around it, all the mechanics around it. And you could be amazing on the erg as a CrossFitter, meaning like you can have a lot of power output, but you could be mechanically like absolutely horrible. Jason Khalipa rowing the 2,000 meter into the marathon row, his mechanics, if you watch them, like just make rowing coaches cringe, because he's doing this like pause and then a hitch and whatever, but he's so damn strong and he's so good at opening his hips and activating that posterior chain that like he can make the screen read a shitload of power. And he's got a ridiculous engine at that point in his career.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, look at how he's rowing, and look at how, I mean, I want to row like that. 99% of us can't get away with that. Right. We have to remember that your rowing mechanics do translate to power, and that starts with an understanding of the language. And so that's why I wanted to make time in this to cover those 4 major points of performance in the catch, the recovery, or the catch, the drive, the finish, the recovery, right? Because that set me up then to talk about the key points in the rowing: sitting tall, fast hands, drive, and in that heels down allows a drive. I never covered hang. I never covered fast when I was going through the setup, but it's an easy one for people to make sense. And I knew I could get there in the moment if necessary. So that would, if we chalk that up to, that was something I would probably have fixed. I would have added the idea of heels down and feel like you're hanging on those straight arms. I would have added that earlier.
I saw you hit that with Hugh at one point. And like I said, it was a quick, it took a couple strokes and he got it.
So I took advantage of the fact that I've done this before and I knew that would, but if I'm critiquing myself, I used a cue in the middle of the workout that I had not set up to translate to something that I had set up earlier. So I'm trusting the athlete to get me. That opens up a lot of room for an athlete maybe who doesn't get it. Oh, Jesus. Now we just introduced a shitload of confusion in the middle of the workout. So that I would critique myself on there. And then the third thing was the pacing. Like this, so, right, like educate a little bit, points of performance, like that, like sit up tall, heels down fast on the drive, quick hands in the recovery, or the quick hands in the finish and recovery. Like those will translate later. But at the end of the day, like if somebody's mechanics aren't perfect, I'm willing to sacrifice that perfection for somebody to get the importance of monostructural movement category for cardiovascular and endurance and stamina training. And that comes to pacing. So that was sort of the 3 sort of, I think in the general, then the specific and the skill work, I tried to focus on and set that up, because that's, I think, if you look at this as like, oh, this is just a simple thing, you're hitting so much of the pyramid with just of the right.
You really are.
We're not talking about nutrition, though we could have, but we're talking about that cardiovascular, respiratory. Granted, okay, we're not doing weightlifting, but you kind of are, because did you see how I translated it to the first pull of the deadlift?
100%, yeah,
and the snatch,
exactly
and then when the arms bend.
Yep.
Right. So I did. You're able to make that connection, and like clicks in. And people just did it yesterday, and they did deadlifts a week and a half ago. So there's that translation. Granted, the throwing could have been, we could talk about that, and the fact that, like, you know, if you open your hips well, you could probably throw the wall ball better. You could throw a ball over your head better. So there's those aspects that could be translated. And then sport. Last time I checked, rowing's a sport.
Yeah.
Right. It's a sport differentiated and different, or disparate from.
Did you play rowing? You played rowing.
I played rowing. Yes. It is differentiated from CrossFit as a sport. So they're learning a new sport here in the middle of doing a nice cardiovascular. So I think it's a much more complicated and nuanced opportunity than, as you said, 3 by 1,000. Like, what the hell am I going to coach? You got a lot if you really want somebody to get something out of the class. So self-evaluation, I think I had a good plan. I know my cues. A little bit of a cheat. I've been doing this I started coxswain when I was 11 years old.
Okay.
For Upper Marion High School rowing team.
You spent some time in a boat.
So I've been in a boat as a coxswain, as a rower for 35 years.
Okay. It's good to go. That's what you said too. I think your exact words were, bottom line for Wednesday, I've probably coached and rowed more hours than you have been alive. If I fuck up Wednesday, I should probably just go ahead and retire.
So I knew I had available to me a decent amount of stuff, but that doesn't mean just because you know how to do it, like you're going to do it well. Because in a sense, it's sometimes harder because you can just like mail it in.
I know how to breathe and I forget sometimes.
Right. So that's, I appreciated your process reminding us, like, no, you got to have a good plan. Because also I can find myself going too much. So having those kind of deliberate, I think I hit my points. I think I kept it specific and simple enough for everyone to kind of understand. And regardless of where they were on their continuum of education and experience, hopefully moved. And I think I did. I think we moved everybody a little bit further down the line. And I think it was fun. Like, I think people hit the mark. Two things. The general warm up in 5:15 went better than in 6:15. I think there was, I'm not sure what it was, if I just got talky with them. Because we started on time and we finished on time with extra time with 5:15. 6:15, we ran a little long. I think what it was, if I had been able to give them more specific, I need you all back on the erg at this time. I lost about 6 minutes from and that's my fault of, I think that's the function of a second class. I was getting a little tired. And I just kind of let them go. And I'm like, shit, we still have to set up the screens. So it's like this comes back to, that's the function of, can you imagine if I was teaching a third class?
Right. Like it's,
I think I had hit the arc of like, things were going really, really well. And again, like, I don't think the athletes noticed it, but like,
you feel it, it, and it's 100%.
And even if you take a break, like I'm not sure going and then coaching the 9:30.
It's still a tough turnaround
because of all the classes. That probably is even harder because you have a wider spectrum of athletes who all deserve as much attention. And so it's going to be the coach's responsibility to be even more flexible. So public service announcement: don't ever coach more than 2 classes in a row. Horrible choice.
You did that for stretch when we had the 5, 6, 7.
Probably don't ever coach more than 2 a day.
That's why I like to keep them in blocks. There's blocks.
So in summary, if I were to give myself an overall score, I would say B+, A-. Solid 90, 92. I think there are elements of it that I'm not sure there's anyone, maybe like somebody who works for C2 or Like, I'm sure there are things I could learn from other people, but I have been doing this a very long time. I know what works for me as a coach.
Yeah.
There are elements of that class that I don't think anyone's going to do any better than me. Like, right? Like,
yeah, like this is your, like, rowing is very much a thing of yours. It's like when I get, and you can see it, and when you coach, like in particular, like the way I get with weightlifting, like I've been studying it and learning it and testing it, and like I get really excited to the point where sometimes I'm like, reel it in, buddy, reel it in.
Yeah.
And it's but
so that's the part where I would kind of degrade my score. Is I think there's worth in somebody who maybe is less concerned about the rowing specific and more like the coaching could be like, yeah, but did you really need to spend those extra 2-3 minutes here? Like what benefit did that yield? And it's like, yeah, you're right. So it's not a rowing seminar, dude.
Right.
It's just a general Wednesday class. Like, so move on.
And that's where, so like, yeah, like the rowing specific part took 24 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, like I think that's where you really started to nerd out. Like you said, looking back, it's like
that also incorporates the specific warm up,
yeah,
too. Like sorry to go ahead.
I say this is right when you got into like you started
hands away,
started the pick drill,
yeah.
Which I did not know that's why it was called the pick drill. So like I was back there like learning, just like
it makes a little noise. In the
honestly,
water.
I was getting antsy back there. I was like, I'm gonna jump in now. Like, they're learning so much. Yeah, like that was the pick drill, and that was the pick drill, and then the
hands
kind
away,
of
body over,
the hands away, body over,
half slide,
full slide, and then the pacing rounds. And so that was everything. So that was long, but it encompassed all of that stuff prior to the workout.
So it's funny. I'm glad you point that, and I'm glad that you recorded it that way. I think there could have been a break there, right? Like that's where if I'm a little bit, if I'm a little bit shorter and more efficient, I buy myself 90 seconds and almost physically make them take a break. Like everyone jump up, go grab water. I want you to bring all the stuff that you know you're going to need when we do start this thing. Bring it on over because we're going to get into pacing. And we'll have one last little quick break, and then we're going to start this show, right? So it creates a physical barrier, which is more in line with kind of my idea of like there's 3 focus where we're talking education, we're talking skill, but then we're also talking, hey, let's get a good workout out of this.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you recorded it that way because in my mind, I see them as separated.
Right.
But
the way you ran
you're objectively evaluating me like, no, man. That's 20. That's why I like listen to that. No, they were separate. And you're like, no, they never left the erg.
Yeah. Yeah. They sat the whole time. That whole
yeah. That's good. That's good.
And, but, yeah, one thing I made too. So like you said, the focus this month is short actionable cues. And so ahead of class, you sent me like, these are the cues that I'm thinking of. These are the things I want to focus on. And even said like with rowing, which I was excited to watch you do, was that it's almost hard to figure out like tactile cues while they're the rower, right? But there was one in particular we said it might need to be more of a visual or a tactile cue. I think it was the chest up. It was the chest up. You said it might need to be more of a visual or even a tactile cue, and so you have to work that in. And so when you were going through, like here's the things. These are the things that you said you were going to do, and I wrote them and underlined them as you said them. So you're setting. So it was cool watching you set them up. Because this is exactly what you're going to start telling them in the WOD. And so you did all those things that you had prepped yourself to do. Boom, it's there.
Yeah.
And now they're hearing it.
I think of like a Chris Nolan movie sometimes with coaching a class, like Memento or something.
Yeah.
Where like in the first scene, the black and white is moving forward, the color is moving backwards.
Yeah.
And so the black and white is setting up the color, and the color is setting up the black and white. And
that's all going to come together.
It is, and it's like, and you don't know that until you've watched the whole movie and then watched it 1,000 times and then talked about it with your friends who are also movie/book nerds.
Yes.
So, but right, if you've coached 1,000 rowing classes, you know that like how to set this stuff up, and that like it's a bit of an unfair advantage in that standpoint as a coach in this process for those other coaches that maybe are going to go through this. Like, I get it. But also, like, isn't this the standard we kind of want?
Yeah, this is where
Like you're allowed to cheat.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that's
if cheating makes it a better experience for the athlete and it gets the results that you want, then cheat away, my friend.
and this is where coaching too. Like coaching, it doesn't start and finish at 6:15 and 7:15.
Yeah.
Like this was like you sent me this is what I'm going to do for this. You sent me that on Monday, right? So like thinking about it and prepping for it and planning it. But it's again for me, like I've winged classes before. Like I've had a lesson plan in my head and gone for it. But I also know like I'll write it down and I may never look at that plan again. But writing it down, like I've set it up and I know exactly where I'm going as I go.
Yeah.
And so that's what
So if you're wondering, folks, what we're looking at, Eric has a beautiful set of it's quite clean. It makes me just warm inside of like, it's absolutely wonderful. It's not too complicated. Like there's cool squares. It's enough space that you can get into the nuance, but it's not so much space that you can get like lost in the like. I like it. This is the great form.
And some are simple. Just check the yes or no.
Yeah,
so like,
which is not a nice thing sometimes.
Did you demonstrate the movement?
Yes.
Did you use progression?
But but I got room. I've got room if I'm the evaluator to like included a social element. Yes, maybe there's like a little star like best blah 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 I've ever seen. Right. So you could like give yourself, if I'm the evaluator, an opportunity, or if let's say included a social element, yes, and maybe start it and been like, come back to this. Didn't notice that 3 of the people were offended by your joke, right? Like you could,
that
never happens. Like you could, but you could totally. I mean, like, I'm talking about other people,
right?
Your jokes.
Those other people that obviously don't know how to deliver a good joke.
But that, like, I love this form that it allows for those, like. But in the end, it's a yes/no question.
Yeah.
Answer it as a yes/no question, unless the situation is, warrants a more nuanced.
It was during this you created, and I wish I wrote it down because you created this really nice visual of like when you're in the boat
of the oar to the blade.
Like it was
that's not mine. God, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was my high school coach. He wasn't. I had main high school coaches, but he was a sweet coach. He was an afternoon coach for the men and the women, and he'd say everything twice. Like the coach from Friday Night Lights, who in the 4th and 5th season is like the Sears TV salesman who joins up and is like, "Hey, Eric Taylor, Coach Taylor," and he repeats everything, right? Like he's so obnoxious,
so good,
but he works and it works. Yeah. Turn it around. That would be on the main. Way enough. That means that like everything was twice. Quick catch. Like that was his like, and so in my head, that's like I have his visual. That's where that comes from. Is he would do, and that's when you're sweeping. That's the motion because you're holding on to the oar and you get it in.
Yeah, it was good. But you had everyone locked in. They're like, warm up. Well, I'm going to go back from the beginning real quick. 6:16 start time, Jack. Come on, man.
Dang it.
You got 5:15. You got to get out.
I was trying to kick them out, man.
They just want to be here. They want to be with you so much.
That's a negative on my social hour. If you had been advised.
So good news. He didn't start off strong because he started a minute late.
Dang it.
Yeah, I mean all the things like you said. But the some part. Did you welcome people as they came in? The announcement. So
real quick, if the other people are like, this was not the focus area of this week's evaluation or this month's evaluation. However, a quick review of the whole thing because it does matter. But I don't care, right? Like, and if there's parts of this that can take away, like, we'll focus on this next time. Just as an FYI, there, evaluatee. An evaluator, like he's letting me know this stuff. So I like that. So I appreciate this stuff.
That's exactly what it is. It's just there. It's like, hey, here they are.
Yeah.
Because the big thing we talked about was the cues. You told me. So in the specific warm up, you laid all those down because then it was wonderful because when we got into the workout, one of them was chest up, and you had drilled it and you worked that position and you kept things chest up, and you even said sit tall. And I remember one point we're coming around, and Genevieve, she's not. Sorry, Genevieve, you're not here.
One of the athletes,
and it was just a slight. It was the slightest it was the slightest, and it was toward the end of her row. Started let her chest drop, and as soon as you were like in her line of sight, like sat up. It was awesome to watch. And then another conversation you had was, hey, look, like I want it to look like this. And now that last, for 850, if the technique is perfectly sound, the mechanics perfectly sound, but that last 150, when it's trying to get it done and go, and we start to blur that line, that's okay. Like we're there. And so it was cool. And you saw that in people like right there toward the end, that check, like, all right, let me just haul ass and get this done.
Yeah.
So like all these things that you set up in the specific warm up, then they were there. Yeah, it was fun to watch. And then I wrote down like all the cues that you mentioned. So we're in the specific, we're in the workout now. You explain what we're doing and the logistical plan. So how you want to pace it, setting up the clock or setting up the monitor and all that stuff. Here's what you're going to pay attention to. Write down your 3, but also your all that stuff. And then the cues I wrote down when you said them, like heels down and sit tall or row tall. And then when I say mid-round check-in, so in between the rounds, saying, hey, here's another thing to think about while you're like catching your breath and going through. So from start, like again, rowing is an easy one where you could phone it in and let them row. You were on them. And my favorite, I told you prior to this, my favorite part was this sheet right here. So it's the list of the athletes and then the cues that you use, visual, verbal, tactile, and did you use their name? So again, the focus was for this month is short cues, specific, short, and actionable cues. And so you used all 3 types of cueing for everybody at some point.
And just so people know, tactile, verbal, visual are the 3 types of cues available to a coach, or at least in our parlance to professional development. Those are the 3 that you have.
Yep. And so, and this is one that too that can be very verbal heavy because they're sitting on a machine and it's just you're yelling chest up or you're yelling heels down. But there's always these bits and pieces where you can sometimes add that tactile cue, and it's or that visual. So at one point, someone's chest is down, I see Jack over and I want you here, and then you see that person sit up.
I would celebrate the athlete who then I did that, and she didn't understand. She asked clarifying questions. So I will offer as a coach, that's when I know I'm doing my job well, that I've created a space and the comfort for an athlete to ask that follow-up question. So oftentimes I find myself verbally have a habit of saying, everybody does that make sense? It's an empty question. Because if you're having to ask that question, people probably aren't actually going to respond and say, no, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Especially if everything makes sense. Right, we're going to, right? Like,
one person's like, it doesn't to me. Especially if I'm newer.
Yeah,
I don't
right.
Want to be the odd person out.
That is a tick that I have, and I know I'm aware of it, and I try to be aware of it and try to get rid of it. This athlete, I said the cue in the middle, try to fix it at speed, and she came around and asked for clarification, and I was so grateful because then we got in the moment. I did not give her. This is actually it. I'm not sure if you noticed this. I said it. She's rowing, and she looked at me. She goes, "Did I fix it?" And I'm like, "Fuck." She shouldn't have to ask me that question. Right. I should have already offered her that feedback of whether it's a yes or no. Did you get it? And so her then even coming back and asking again, I was so grateful, and we did, and it wasn't a problem for moving forward. So that's like a perfect example of that would be where I would ding myself like that. I had a lot of room there.
The ghost coaching,
I made her work as an athlete way harder than she should have had to as her coach. But that's a perfect testament of miles on the road between us as athlete coach that she felt totally comfortable and just she's a hell of an athlete. Like so.
It's all we're stating. But like I said, it's part of this CrossFit experience. And I think it's part of what makes this is like, I start every time you went to somebody specifically, and we were talking about coaching grenades, where it'd be like, he could stand, like Jack could stand in front of the class and yell chest up to the entire class, heels down. And it's, but people need that specific cueing. And so I tallied every time Jack went to someone specifically. It might have been for a cue, and it might have just been like, great job, keep doing that. Or like, again, celebrating the thing they were doing. I stopped tallying because he hit everyone 5 times over the course of that. And this was over the course of the class too. So over the course of the class, you hit a different a visual, a verbal, and a tactile cue at least once with all of them. You got to each person at least 5 times where you gave them very specific, individualized, hi, you so-and-so, whether it was to fix something, whether it was praise something, whether it was just to checking in on someone. You did that at least 5 times for every single person in the class, which again, in a workout like this can be challenging because you feel like it's an easy one to
you stand at the one edge of the rowers,
like
you
how
stand
much
in front of the rowers, or
like, because you also, I know, especially with newer coaches, you worry about getting to that point where
stop talking to me.
God, you're just saying the same thing over and over. But you weren't saying the same thing over and over. Like you were driving home the things that you set up earlier as just like check-ins and reminders, but there were other things that you were working on too. And like you said, you in the workout, the quick hands, like that was there, and maybe that's one you could have thrown in earlier, but you also people got it when you got there, and so that was something different. And so that was like that's the thing I always look at is like that's kind of the magic of this CrossFit, why people pay to.
All 5 of those athletes felt like they were getting a personal training touch, but in the benefit of a group class where like, I do not like personal training. I do not want to do it.
Yep.
I don't want to be done on it to me about, but it's nice. I do want that level of attention.
Yeah.
But I want to do it with a bunch of other people.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of I agree. I will offer like, that is something that the tricks of the trade, going to the level 2 twice and having been through a couple different seminars on the other side, set yourself up for success.
Yeah.
Right. Like the ergs are set, like lay them out in a way that immediately makes you do that. So like I will leave my water and the marker on one side of the ergs.
Oh, that's
so I have to walk down all of them. And it's like, well, if I'm walking down, I might as well talk to everybody as I go. Oh shit, I need my water. So I have to walk back down. I gotta get everybody right. So it's like, because don't have stuff in your hands. If I have stuff in my hands, I can't touch you and talk to you and stuff. Like we shouldn't be touching kids. Set yourself up to do those. And that's an Austin Malleolo trick. And then the Denise Thomas trick, God, what was hers? Of like, leave something else. She did something else. I can't remember what it was. And I was just like, oh my God. And she goes, yeah, because left to my own devices, I'm just going to stand in the front of the room. And like, I don't want to, she's like, I'm a soccer player. I don't want to be chasing you around the field. So those types of things. And that's why public service announcement. I'm apparently all about PSAs today. I'm not lining people up during warm-ups or during the workout because I need for some OCD itch I need scratched for you to be in line. It's because I can't get to everybody if I'm navigating plates and bags and water bottles. And it's like, right? Like you're over on this side of the rig and you're over here and you're over here, right? Like I get it. I'll meet in the middle and meet athletes where they need to be. But in a general and specific warm-up, MFers, you're getting in line.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's in a sense the time that I can really assess what is in your best interest for when shit starts to go fast and heavy.
Yeah.
And so it's like that. It really is. It serves a function. Form follows function. Like it serves a function, and that form allows. The circle is okay. I'm not a good circle person, but I get it. Like I know people that are, and I can appreciate that. And so I like every now and then, like people will form a circle, and I just like want to kind of be like, I'm like,
I like the circle depending on the movement because it's like if everyone has barbells, and especially the space and the size of the class, if everyone has barbells in a circle, I can tell people that they're thinking about the person next to them and not cleaning the person.
I was about to say, you like barbell circles?
No. I like.
Good Lord!
And it also,
it's like I don't even know you.
And it depends on the size of the group. If it's like 5 people, sure, like a full morning class, but like like the air squat, like I'm gonna throw you in a circle.
Oh, okay. I can
because
see that.
I like I
they
like
both
the
squat clean. I could see in a circle.
Like I like the being able I like that I can cue you and fix you or the lines. Like
I'm with that. But I'm 99% of the time you're going in rows and columns.
Yeah.
And it really is, and it's a combination. The erg is such a wonderful one to see it.
Yeah.
When everyone's rowing, you can see immediately when somebody's leaned forward, when somebody's out of body position. So I don't know if you know, like there was a point where like one of the athletes on the other end from a handful of the other athletes, I was about to say his name, was completely out of position.
His name.
And I was about to yell it as a general cue, but it didn't need to be a general cue. It was his cue.
Yeah.
And so I walked over, I got on him, and now I'm on the complete other side that I was. I got to walk all the way back and touch every single one of the athletes as I went.
There you go.
And so like so I appreciate this. This is a lot of work. And what we're talking about is this is a lot of years of kind of being aware of this, but it's also, I kind of can't take credit for it in the sense that, well, yeah, like if you set yourself up, you can't help but kind of get here.
Yeah.
One last thing, Zoom classes were a game changer for me to appreciate the power of the visual cue.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, so the verbal, we all do it. Like nobody needs practice with the verbal cue.
Yeah.
Like you're all doing it too much. We're all doing it too much. The visual cue is an unutilized tactile cue people get because once you do it a couple times, it's not hard. Oh, right. If I force him into position, I can get him there. The one that's kind of the come to my hand one is kind of a, and you'll never forget it once you see it work. And you're like, oh my God. So like that one resonates. Once people clicks, it stays in. The visual, you're like, I don't know how to properly use that.
Yeah. Being
on Zoom and in this way, like having to go like, hey, everyone, I want you to look. Here's what you're doing. Here's what I need you to do.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, and then I can watch, and I would watch the screen. And that's when like the ancillary benefit of the Zoom thing was having to creatively figure out how to make a visual into a tactile.
Yeah.
And so it'd be like, Barry, you've got that wall behind you. What I need you to do is go up to the wall and I want you to pull your shoulders back till you feel them hit the wall. And Barry's like, oh yeah, okay. We've never had a Barry as a client, by the way.
Yeah.
So maybe we have. No, I don't think we have.
Had a Barry.
So when I got back into real person, like when they're real people, but like physically with people, instantly I was like, oh, how the visual and the tactile can work in conjunction was like, I hated those Zoom classes. I hated the whole thing about that. It was absolutely horrible. But the benefit coming out of that was I feel like we all were better coaches of having to like the importance of this like spread of the visual, verbal, and tactile. Okay, that's it.
No, that's right. Like I said, I feel like this is the thing too, where you look at your fitness device later and you're like,
oh yeah. Oh, right. Thanks. You bring that up. So I pulled up my Garmin Connect readout. And so I was at 0 workout minutes or 0 intensity minutes for the day. When I woke up this morning, I'm currently at 50. 30 of them were moderate and 10 of them were vigorous. So for that to register, if you start the Garmin as a workout, it'll kind of register. And I think it's a little bit more, but whatever. I didn't start it. I mean, this is just, it's going off of my heart rate and respiration rate. In coaching 60 minutes or 120 minutes, 40 of those were at an intensity level to register as an actual workout. Yeah, like that. So that's where the 50 minutes, 30 of them were moderate, which means I'm in level 2 heart rate. So basically like I did a 30-minute steady state on the bike or the erg or walk or run. 10 minutes were vigorous, which means they were level 3 or above.
I bet it was right around the last round.
Maybe, or I think it was when I was rowing. When I did a couple of the row demos.
Yeah.
Because it's not like it's total. And you can kind of see like a little chart or a little graph that like goes up. But yeah, so that's kind of fascinating. And again, it comes back to what we were talking about with coach 3 of those in a row. She might be a really fit person, but you're not aware of just how physically taxing, and that physical taxing is probably going to start to deteriorate your cognitive ability. And so this has been fun to kind of track it again of like what physicality a coaching how much physicality coaching well actually requires. Okay,
cool. I definitely say pluses and minuses. I'm not sure, but I definitely say like I would call that an A class.
Thanks.
Like I totally would. Especially because And maybe I would maybe say A- strictly because of the timeline.
Totally.
Like we want to be done within
Yep.
an hour, right?
Yep.
Like that's a deduction.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to ruin the trick, but like this trick too. Like when there's a pee break too, like, all right, you guys have 1 minute.
Free. Yeah.
Right? It's
but I had already lost. I had already lost the boat, and I think
Yeah.
it really. I'm very thankful for the awareness of this start time, finish time on the specific warm up.
Yeah.
You're right. Like I spend an extra minute and a half there with a physical break. I buy myself 3 minutes in that pee break.
Right
because
there.
if you think about it, the reason that might have been so long is because I'd had them on the rower for 24 effing minutes, right?
Yeah.
So it's like,
and you didn't feel it, but they did, and that was like a.
But in the moment, I didn't. I'm frustrated with them because I'm like, oh my god, what are they doing? Let's go! But dude, you've made them move for 24 minutes. You break that up a little bit, they don't feel like they need as long of a break. So that's a really, like instinctively, I was like, A- B+. Like, and I'm thinking, my macro metric is you ran long, dude. Yeah. Like you don't get an A if you run long. Like that's just the way it is.
I think the A, like I said, like the A is it totally your the energy you brought to that from like you can tell how much you know about rowing, but also enjoy teaching. Like watching you go into like teach mode was a lot of like I said, the fact that I felt it. I wasn't even in the class, and I was like, this is really cool. Like, and it's so and it's the stuff. I mean, honestly, it's the stuff without this is bonus points, but like it's the stuff that when I first started CrossFit and you were my coach, it was like, God, I love this shit because like watching you deliver with that sort of like passion is fun. So anyway, so
that's very nice.
This is fun, but yeah, we can always.
But I think that it's those little things, and I can film myself and then watch it, and I won't see that.
Right.
So this is, I don't care at what level you are, critical.
Yeah.
If you truly believe that you want to curiously be consistently be curious, well, this is uncomfortable, right? Like I'm full transparency. You sent out you told me about it on Saturday, and I was like, oh, that's kind of fun, right? We had a chance to nerd out on it, and but then the actual execution of it, I'm like, oh, fucking A, like seriously, like, and then the Slack, I'm like, God dang it, Eric, I am not making a class plan that specific. No, right? Like, I don't need to do that. I know how to do this. Screw him, right? And then like, good, like that. Like you should feel that way. Like
get a little uncomfortable here,
like that. Okay, and then I laugh at myself, and I'm like, no, man, like lean into this. And so like it makes a better cake.
Yeah,
like Gordon Ramsay did this to like the dude's Top Chef or not Top Chef. Right. Master Chef.
Iron
right?
Chef.
No, he's not Iron Chef. But like he's the Master Chef guy. He's Gordon Ramsay, right? Like Chaos Kitchen or whatever all the other Hell's Kitchen.
Hell's Kitchen.
Like, dude doesn't need to do any of this shit.
No.
He did it to himself in that series where he goes to different places around the world.
Oh yeah.
And he has to use their local food, but he goes up against the local expert that he kind of links in with. Which one of the ones he had she had tried to get a job in one of his kitchens and he never did, and then he was like, oh my God, I should have totally hired you. And she's like, no, I'm good. I got my shit going here now. I don't need you. And you could see in his face, like, so like a little pissed, not pissed, but a little bit like, hey. And then he was kind of like, oh my God, she is amazing. And she need him. Like, and he would, I mean, there wasn't like a measured
right. It was like,
competition, but it was sort of like they would do the afterwards, all the people that came for the meal would like kind of assess.
Right.
And hers was better than his.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, man, that's what you get. Like she knows her stuff over you. But anyway, I think to myself, that's a dude who, okay, great. It made great TV and I'm watching it. Advertising sold, like home run. Mm-hmm. But from like a personal standpoint, that's a guy who professionally appreciates never stop learning.
Yeah. Like
you have to put yourself in these positions. And so I'm really grateful. Maybe that's my gratitude, man, is
man. I'm glad.
This, A, you are good at this. You are a good evaluator. And B, I love this form. And C, thank you for making me do this and putting me in this position. It's invigorating.
It's funny. When doing this, I'm like, because my goal is to do these, once a month, it's at least once a month, and for some coaches it might be like every other month, because some coaches they're still new and they're still learning, and this is the benchmark, right? This is the Fran, or this is the Cindy, or this is the which for me can be uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for me too, because I want to make sure I want to make sure I'm on that line where it's like, I need to give you feedback, but I also don't want to shoot your confidence, because it's, especially when you're newer, like it can feel like, and I trial and error,
it's like I know I suck. You don't need to tell me.
Like there's a couple times I've done these where I'm like, I feel like I just shit sandwiched them like 5 times in here, when really it's like, and this has been a process where I'm just kind of getting to, we're just going to do this one thing. Like, yes, this is all on here, and I want you to be aware of this, but here's the only thing I'm really like focusing on. And then I was talking with you the other day about, I just need just a little bit at a time. Like this month we're going to do this, and next month we're going to do this. And in 12 months, look at what we've built, as opposed to, look, see all this? I need to be perfect by the next time I do it.
Good luck.
Right. And so for me, it's a good test for me to also make sure I'm falling in line with this thing that I want to see. Like I'm not rushing the process, and I don't know. It's a good process for me.
So there's something too also for the coach, maybe the continued challenge as I develop professionally is, and it's so hard. I don't know if it's hard. Instinctively, it's not hard for me, and I don't know why. And I'm just saying this like sort of like a self-awareness. I don't coach to the evaluation.
Yeah.
It's actually one of the things that I got pinged on last time at the level 2, first time at the level 2, but then better at the, well.
So also saying you had coffee and donuts for me was not coaching the evaluation. Okay.
No, that's just experience.
Bravo.
No, I often professionally will bristle at rigid heuristic sort of standards and guidelines.
Yeah.
Because in the nature of my multiple professional experiences, guidelines are helpful, but real life seldom abides by the guidelines that somebody somewhere wrote to model what might or might not be the execution of reality.
Yeah.
And so there has to be room for variation. Where this is helpful, and in the CrossFit world, is it's so clear cut. Did what you did yield better movement?
Right.
Define better movement. We have the definition of better movement: multi-joint, functional, full range of motion, exert the highest power output possible. And then within the nuance of that, specific faults and failures of midline stability and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Yeah. So, okay. So when I would do something that wasn't in line with the specific guideline, and then they could show me, the evaluator could show me how what I thought was happening wasn't actually happening, I found a better appreciation of like, hey, there's a guideline and there's rules for a reason. But in its excess, for new coaches, old coaches, everybody, like, coaching in the middle of an evaluation, if you know you're being evaluated, coaching to the evaluation will never yield success.
No.
You have to coach with the fact or the thought that you're always being evaluated, because you are. And they're called the 9 people in your class.
Yeah.
Whether they know it or not, you know it or not, they are evaluating you. And it's manifested in whether they come back or not. It's manifested in whether they improve or not. And it's manifested in whether they do what you're asking them to do, and they do it better. And so that to me is sort of this, like, it's constantly in motion with each other.
Yeah.
This is so helpful because I don't coach to the evaluation, but clearly there is a point for me to improve.
Yeah.
And I bet you this changes. I finish on time. I actually probably get more done. Yeah. And whether the athletes know it or not, they probably would have had a slightly better experience.
Right.
But they don't need to, they're not supposed to be paying attention to that.
Right.
They're paying attention to, did I have fun? Did I get a good workout? Do I want to come back tomorrow?
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
I think it's I kind of look at this as like I always joke, it's like road lines in New York City. Like they're just like watch traffic in New York City. They're just guidelines. Like I need you to stay here, but like you can kind of make your way here. And so this to me is like the things that you should probably always be doing is like in your whiteboard brief, like these are the like this should be second nature, right? Like you should this is just what you do every time. And then when we get to this stuff, you know, when it gets the specific warm up and when it gets to general warm up and the way you're cueing and connecting, like everyone has their different flavor and everyone has their different taste. And as long as we're again staying within the curious, consistent, courageous, and what is it that we're actually trying to do here, there's leeway for you to do what's right by you while also still doing what's right by the athlete. And that's why this is not as rigid as yes or no. It's like, was a progression used, yes or no? But sometimes a progression isn't necessary.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's that's why the yes or no ones are very much that these are the things that should for the most part be second nature. This is now where this is the assessment, this is the evaluation, this part here, the counting, you know, checking in. This is the assessment, this is the evaluation.
Right. Like those are the nitty-gritty nuanced mechanics that you as the evaluator have available to you to then be able to, like, in writing, there's often, right, like the idea that if I'm writing about a text, there should be a point in the text. If I'm writing about a movie, I'm giving a review of a movie. There's a point in the movie that's maybe 30 seconds long, but it's the precipice from which I could stand and kind of survey the whole experience of the movie. And so that's sort of what this is. They're like, yeah, it's all important, but invariably, if you do this and you get comfortable with it, both as the evaluator and the evaluatee, I'm going to know or have a sense of where that precipice was.
Yeah.
But I can't be thinking about it or else I'm going to get nothing done.
Yeah.
So thank goodness I have the evaluator there to be watching that for me. And then when we meet up and do this is much longer than what the debrief would actually be.
Yeah.
We meet up and you offer that to me and I go, I knew it, but I didn't know that I knew it. That's it. That was it. All right, cool, sweet. High five. That's one more data point, boop, to put in my little tool bucket, and I can now move forward. All right, and guess what? It's just like the boys and I talked, which they qualified for states, ladies and gentlemen. They're going to states in golf.
Way to go, fellas.
God, they're awesome. Practice, right? They practice so much. It's a testament to the power of wanting to do it. I don't tell them to golf. I'm trash, man. Like, they're not gonna learn shit from me. But like, they practice, and they both had ups and downs throughout the season. Joshua so insightfully, Matt already kind of knew it. Joshua so insightfully was able to say it. The days that they get ready to play matches it, and coach would come over and give them like very specific things to tweak in their swings or worst rounds ever. And everyone knows that. Don't change anything on the range or learn something new the day you're playing.
Yeah.
Definitely don't do it unless it's just a practice round and you don't give a shit and you want it to be a mess. I'm going to go forward. I don't think I will because I've been doing it, right? But that's a nice little thing. But for a lot of new coaches and anybody in something new, right? The first couple times after this are going to be a mess.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking about the thing that I just gave you feedback on. It's got to sit for a while. It's got to stew for a little bit. And then it kind of gets, right? It gets amalgamated into you and your style, and then we'll tweak something else, right? And it's always that looking towards like, hey, I want to be a level 4, maybe, right? I definitely want to take that level 3, but this has got to be a part of it. I think I got my seeing down, right? I can see things. I think I got my cueing down. I think I got my teaching down. But do I have all 3 of those with athletes? I don't know. Right. So that, and can I get the timing down? And right. So there's like all these other things that are always available for tweaking. This offered me a new precipice from which to view sort of the whole experience. And I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. Yeah. Give them more breaks. Give them more breaks to offer more time to do the things that you want to do. And I'm like, oh, dang it. But then I have to let go of control, Eric. And I have this bit of thing with control. I don't know. Oh, that's a different talk. That's a different conversation. Never mind. I'll talk to somebody else about that. You can't tell me what to do.
Sorry, that's not. I don't think I have that on here.
That's a different. That's a different rate. That's a different rate you want to charge me.
Yeah,
that's 150.
It's a completely different form.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, you got a boogie, man.
I do. No, this is perfect.
Cool.
I got like 3 minutes, but I do have to pee before I leave. So
I can't help you with that.
And
But
that's gonna take
at least 5 minutes.
At least 5 minutes. My pee break before I transition to my drive. Folks, there's 2 bathrooms. Use them both, please.
Technically, there's 3.
Yeah, come on.
Because they are like 1-person bathrooms. You can lock.
Not to mention, you've been here 60 minutes. Do you really need to pee that badly?
Also, like full disclosure, I use that women's bathroom all the time, especially in the winter because they have the space heater in there. It's so warm. And
just don't pee on the seat, man. If you're gonna pee on the seat, wipe it off or just sit. You sit.
Only number 2 in there.
Oh,
sorry, guys.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
That's my gratitude. Space heaters in the women's bathroom.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
There you go. Good. This is a ton of fun. Thank you. I mean it. I really am grateful. Awesome. Thank you for doing this. And I wish everybody, all the other coaches, like lean into it. It's totally worth it. Like small stakes.
Yeah.
Right. Like fix one thing and then after fix less.
I'm not gonna say this is gonna cost you your job, but like that's not the intent. The intent is not a should you be coaching or not.
Look, it could be the worst class you've ever coached in the world. Yeah. I like great. We got a ton of things and we don't have to, but like awesome.
Let's start here.
Yeah, like one thing. And then like do less. It's the Paul Rudd and losing Sarah or forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Oh, yeah.
Do less.
Yeah.
Do less. Well, I mean, now you're not doing anything. You're just laying there on the board. Like we gotta do something. I mean, it's like, but just like think like, all right, I'm only specific action, but like, okay, stop. Too many. One cue. What's the one cue you're gonna nail in this class? Which means how are you gonna set it up? How are you gonna make sure it has context? How are you gonna actually teach it to them? Then how are you gonna make sure you see it? And then how are you gonna actually cue it? And then how are you gonna assess that your cue actually made a difference?
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Holy shit. So I thought I was gonna do 3 cues. That's 18 different things I have to do. I'm going to do one thing, which means I got to do 6 things for that one thing.
There you go.
One thing. Just do one because it's going to come with a bunch of other shit.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's fun. This is fun. So anyway.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
I enjoyed it.
Sweet.
Cool. Appreciate you, brother.
All right, man.
Awesome. All right. Watch this. This is how the countdown works. Ready? All right. We're out of here in 5,